There's a lot that's not right with the world, that's wrong with the world. Uh, in my talks and presentations, I often speak to the differences between one's perception and reality, because perceptions tend to be made up of feelings and sentiments and conditioning, and reality, hopefully, is made up of fact. But when I say that there's a lot wrong with the world, I think it is both perception as well as reality. The reason I say this is because mercifully, there is an antidote to this. It's also sometimes fashionable for people of an older generation to deride and poke fun at younger generations. But as somebody who has always staunchly believed in and batted for the youth, and someone who has taught and continues to teach and engage with young people all the time, I can tell you that, contrary to popular belief in certain quarters, youngsters aren't nearly as apathetic or disengaged as they are sometimes assumed or presumed to be. And joining us this evening is one very, very shining and brave example of a youngster who is deeply invested in all that is happening around us and around her, generally in society and in the world, and particularly in the context of what we will speak about today. She is a very, very strong, opinionated, and fearless voice. And that is precisely the silver lining that I'm referring to. We are calling today's session quite plainly and directly Students' Mental Health Denied, because unfortunately, she has experienced firsthand recently the kind of sort of denial and apathy from people in positions who should be having the exact opposite attitude, display shocking denial of deteriorating student mental health, and therefore has been calling them out quite loudly and quite courageously, which is why I'm very, very happy and privileged that Subhechha Roy is joining us this evening, all the way from Siliguri. And she's herself somebody who's in a critical transition phase from school to college. While she navigates that, she not only contends with challenges that test her own mental resilience, but also what is presented by the things that she observes around her. So, Subhecha, welcome. Thank you very much for making time, for even suggesting that we have a conversation around this topic, because it is so, so important, and I'm very excited.
Thank you so much. I'm honored, and even I'm very excited to dig deeper into the issues that hardly get talked about, hardly get any attention.
Wonderful. Now, I also must mention, and correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't spoken about this, but of your couple of social media handles, my favorite is, of course, Case Not Closed. And the entire sort of meaning and ethos of that is these many, many unaddressed, unanswered issues around us that need further attention, focus, contemplation, action, etc. Right?
Thank you so much. It's just a creative escapism on the side that I've begun very recently. Thank you so much.
You're very modest. It's not just creative escapism. It's anything but escape, because people generally sweep issues under the rug to escape, like ostriches. So, well, before we go any further, tell the audience a little bit about what you're doing, what you've recently done.
Okay, I am Shubhecha Roy. I'm a student right now. I'm currently in the transition phase between school and then college. This year, I've actually decided to take a break and then prepare another year for law entrance exams that I had taken previously again in December itself, but I did not make it to my desired college. So I'm preparing once again for them, and I'm hoping for the best. Uh, Other than
Wonderful.
that,
Hmm.
other
Please,
than
please.
that, I'm into reading a little bit, and then I also like to sing. That's all I do.
Lovely. Now, you told me when we first chatted also, and you've repeated it at this point. So I must ask you, we all understand, most of us, that when we have to take these exams in order to make it to certain colleges, whether they're private exams that a particular college requires, whether they're broader competitive exams, that's an extremely, no pun intended, testing time. And it brings with it a lot of, again, mental and psychological burden, stress, pressure. And also, I was very pained to know that you sort of missed the mark by barely a few points. And we spoke a little bit about what kind of disappointment and disillusion that can bring before we get into your broader observations at school, etc. I would love for you to share a little bit, of course, without divulging any details, private information you don't wish to. That when you confront a situation like that, where you've missed a institute, let's say by a few points or few percentage points, how does that make you feel? And what did you specifically do, perhaps in order to cope with that situation, come to terms with it? How do you even bounce back and say, okay, fine, I'm going to take a year off and prepare again?
So, since I have been dealing with this since a lot of time, actually, the exam was in December, and October and November were ridden with the anxiety before the exam. And then the exams, both of the exams happened, and then the results came. I did not actually have to wait for the exam before the, like, while taking the test, I actually understood that I might not make it.
Hmm.
And then even it was a mixed feeling of dejection actually, and then disappointing my parents and my mentors, because stakes were high, because my mentors expected a lot and my teachers expected a lot. My parents also had a kind of expectations from me which I did not meet, and I also expected my a few things from me. So that was a lot of dejection, and then self-loathing, because I felt like I procrastinated a lot. I could have done things better. I could have taken a different approach altogether. All of that. And then the feeling of uncertainty, because you never know what lies in front. So I was at a loss of coping mechanisms, but actually time healed. By this January and by February, I had to focus on my board exams, and then I thought, if I don't do well in the boards, I will feel that extra disappointment that I did not do well in boards, neither did I do well in the competitive exams. So I sort of had to come out of the sorrow that I
Well,
endured.
thank you for your honesty. Now, this is slightly off topic, but I must ask you because it's again come up in context. Do you feel that it is fair to say that, particularly with Indian students, and I think it's similar to the wider South Asian community, that apart from and in addition to the expectations that a student or an individual will have from themselves, there is a extra pressure and burden of that whole thing of family, society, mentors, perhaps more than it is in the Western world?
Yeah, definitely. Because the mindset in India is almost like do or die, because there are hardly any other thing or option that you can think of, because there is that mentality, doctor, engineer, or not my daughter kind of mentality in India. So,
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I will say that from your very candid admission that you basically didn't have coping mechanisms, and it was really time that we must understand, and particularly students must understand that what feels like literally the end of the world at that given moment and for some time thereafter is really not, because that is perception and not fact. Your life doesn't end. Life is a big pie, and that is one important but finite part of that pie. And like most negative phases, it is transitory and it passes. And that is what time teaches us.
I'd like to add something.
Please do.
I've always kept this quote in mind. There's this very beautiful poem. I love this by Robert Frost. That the only this part. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. Because there are more things that I have to accomplish other than competitive exams. Definitely is a very important part because it decides what I do for the rest of my life. But definitely there are many other things that add as a silver lining.
Most certainly. And you're underscoring a very, very important facet of understanding life, because even the part of life that that competitive exam will lead you to will be your work stroke livelihood, which itself is just part of that pie. Oftentimes we perhaps give it way too much weightage, and almost derive our identities purely and significantly from our work. But it's really not that way, is it? There is so much more to us.
Definitely, I agree.
Great. So now, if we go back a little bit more in time, not too much, just recent past, you also told me about certain developments that happened while you were at school in Siliguri, which also were really kind of extreme versions and manifestations of when particularly students just cannot navigate the type of pressure and stress that they feel. If you'd like to share that a little bit.
Yeah, so there were two unfortunate events that took place in my school in one academic session. Within one academic session, we lost two children, both of whom were my juniors. I was not particularly their friend. I was not acquainted with them, but I have close relations with people who were really good
Hmm.
friends or acquaintances with them. So it like every recount of both of them, I have always heard about them being very kind people, and actually a kind of sort of lost kind of um, you know nobody really knew them.
Hmm.
Everybody has a kind of perception of them in their heads now that they are gone.
Hmm.
Nobody put a lot of attention to them.
Hmm.
But then there both of these unfortunate incidents really affected everybody in the school, I must say. But then there were also people who were extremely apathetic. Like there
Sydney,
were
so before, I mean, if you wouldn't mind,
Yeah.
tell us what happened, and then we'll get into what the reactions or inactions were.
Yeah, so in September 2025, uh, a class ninth student, she committed suicide, and she left two notes, which are both of them were very heartbreaking. And it's still enigmatic. It's still ambiguous because we don't know what happened. Nobody knows what happened. And it's just that on a random morning before when she was coming to school, and then she did not come to school, and then she went to an area where there are like high rise buildings, and nobody exactly knows how she got into the buildings, and then she jumped off of the building, which is like very very sad. And it affected all of her classmates because she really was. a nice girl, because I know I don't really like, I was not her friend, but one of my close friends knew her, and then she
And
also.
just to clarify, Subhechha, I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but two
No.
things. One is that you said she was in grade 9,
Yeah,
and at that time you were in which grade?
I was in 11th or
Okay,
12th.
you were in 11th, number one. Number two, for whatever it's worth, and I know you mentioned that the notes were very cryptic or enigmatic, but what did they say in any case?
Uh, there were two notes. One was written for her brother, where she uh, asked her brother to, not take such drastic measures and, live life a certain way. She asked her brother to be a good child and like listen to her parents, be obedient and everything. And the other note was a kind of a script where she wrote thank you to some people, that included two of her teachers and some of her friends. And another thing that still that still runs through my head is that she messaged her friends on Instagram a week before, and she expressed gratitude to them for being her friend and everything. And then just maybe a week before this incident, she deactivated her Instagram account. And people who received the messages are still in are still in shock. It's incomprehensible. Why would she take such a step?
Absolutely.
But
And it also perhaps points to the fact that it was a very much a properly premeditated, planned, step by step executed thing.
yes, exactly. And she took the time to message her friends. She took the time to write the two of her letters. Like, there were literally 2 pages full that were put in between her wristwatch. And it's really painful that she had almost come to school, and then she traced back, and then she went to an area where there were high rise buildings.
Okay.
Could have been stopped. uh,
Okay, so now, so this absolutely inconceivable horror takes place, and then you had started to kind of tell us about certain reactions and sort of key people or stakeholders who really were whose outlook was quite shocking.
Yeah, the school's principal, was like, her take on this was really, really shocking, in the sense that she said, and I quote, um, "We do not need the school captain had went there, and he had asked the principal for a week of mental health awareness sessions. She said that we can only give one assembly, and whatever you want to do, you can do in that one assembly. And then on further requesting for a week of more talks about mental health, she said, not needed. We have annual function coming up, we have better things to focus on."
Right. So
Because
now,
yeah,
I'm really sorry. This is so shocking that it probably won't even register with people unless we, really sort of flag it. So not only was there no action from the school side, even when the student body proposed certain most basic steps to be taken, even those were denied. And there were quote unquote better things to focus on. My God.
yeah, annual function was coming, so she had better things to look at. It is almost like the loss of one child is only on her parents, only on her family, that they need to mourn, or they need to grieve. It's as if she was not a part of the family that they call their school to be. And then also,
Just out of curiosity, there was a nationally reported suicide that took place at a very well-known school in my city of Jaipur a few months ago. I will state quite plainly, I'm not scared of anybody. I don't care if I stop getting work as a result of things I say. That this particular school and its very powerful owner unsurprisingly, managed the damage very well. And very briefly, it was reported that they have lost their CBSE association, but everything's back on track and nothing is the matter. But even then, here at least, the girl student who was the victim, her family and the media seemed to make a huge effort to put pressure on the school. Was there no pressure put on the school in your guys' case from the child's family or anything? Did the media report it at all?
The media did report it, but it was only locally spread, and the parents chose to keep quiet. The parents did not really indulge with a lot of media. They did not want to entertain media at that time, maybe because they were grieving. That's about it, and that's how the chapter closed. And then more apathetic remarks were made कि uh, अगर वो बता देती उस दिन कि कौन से लड़के के साथ चल रहा था, something on along these lines, तो आज ये नहीं होता. Like all of this, like
So,
all of
so,
it
so
is.
it was insinuated that this obviously had to be a immature, juvenile, romantic thing, and which
Yes.
sort of led to it.
Yeah, even after so much evidence that it definitely is a premeditated, very thought out, planned incident, they just chose to turn a blind eye because that's easier.
You having been somebody at senior school at the time, must be having a sense of what the wider student body of the school was feeling at the time.
Most people were lamenting, and a lot of people were angry. I don't know what led to the anger, but
Mhm.
they were like, "Who does this?" Definitely, somebody who suffers for a long time does this. But I don't think the wider section of people had really wrapped their head around the whole thing, that it's a really deep rooted issue that led to such a drastic measure.
I understand that at school, obviously, people we know personally are very few, and student populations at schools are much, much larger.
Yes.
Having said that, oftentimes, even people we are not connected with, I'm talking about other students, whether they're junior or senior, one tends to have some kind of vague impression of that person or that individual or his or her personality. Did this particular girl, having taken the extreme step that she did, come as a shock to a lot of you?
Yeah, it did come as a shock because although she was a really quiet girl and everything, she was really disciplined. She was a part of the student body itself, and so she was in close connection with a lot of members of the student body. So it did came as a shock because like she was extremely polite, extremely well behaved, as everybody would recount her to be, and it was definitely very shocking because on a random morning you get a news like they firstly tried to cover it up. They did not want people to know. We came to know through social media, the social local Facebook handles, they were all about going on about it because it was such a horrifying incident. Like horrifying imageries were circulated online, so that's how everybody in the school came to know about it. But there were, for a week, there were no official statement made by the school.
Wow. Okay, well, I mean, this absolutely colossal tragedy takes place, and then, as you disturbingly enough said, it doesn't stop there. So tell us what happens next.
So this happened in September, and in a couple of months, while the same academic session is going on, in February, another boy, he commits suicide. This time, I don't think any notes were left, and he was an 11th standard student. Uh, I have friends who used to be very close with him, and it was just before the day we had our physics board exams. So a lot of people were so disturbed that costed their physics board exam, because there wasn't enough time to digest,
Hmm?
grieve,
Hmm?
or process the
Process
feeling
it at all. Yeah.
of losing a friend. And so many people were like absolutely shocked and horrified about this, because just it is his friends speculate that he probably tried to seek help because he had asked his friends to come over the day
Hmm.
before, and nobody's parents allowed because it was like
Hmm.
board
It's
exams were going on.
correct, correct.
So they are genuinely very sorry that they weren't there for him when he really needed them, and they think that they could have stopped him from taking such a drastic measure, at least understand that something is wrong. So it is really unfortunate.
Obviously, we are absolutely correct in making the association that had the school itself, or at least the proposals the students were getting them, allowed those sessions of sensitization, awareness, orientation to take place, there would have been much better chances that this boy may not have sort of jumped into such an extreme situation, and or for that matter that other students would have been better equipped to spot certain red flags and assist him and come to his aid earlier. um, Now that this happens for the second time in the academic year, I'm curious to know what the school says, doesn't do.
There is no accountability, or there is no measure that has been taken by the school, since school was closed for everybody because boards were going on and junior classes had their vacations going on. They did not feel the need to make a statement about it. No statements were issued, and even when the new academic session began for the junior students, nobody acknowledged the loss of a student who used to be a member of the family, as they claim it to be. And I absolutely agree, like had there, like, it is evident because one assembly was conducted about mental health awareness, and it was like done on a very large scale, because that was the only thing that was allowed by the principal. And then one child, he came up to my twin, he was a school captain, so he came up to my twin and he said that भैया आप आपका आपका असेंबली अटेंड करने के बाद लग रहा है कि actually there is hope, like we are not alone, everybody goes through it. And it really helped. So I think had there been more talk about this thing, because it is so not really talked about. So had there been more halchal about this topic for at least another week, more students would have come up and seeked help, because nobody sought help, nobody felt that there was a space, a safe space. And now that these two incidents have taken place, it is almost like it's normalized within students ki, oh, it's okay, two people have done it. And it's just very sad, and it's unfortunate that children in school will never know that there's this ray of hope, a silver lining. Now that a psychologist has been mandated in CBSE schools, I hope things may change. But yeah, for this.
It's again important here to underscore that this one assembly, this one very significant assembly that took place, was also entirely to the credit of the students who did all
Yeah.
the research, who got in touch with outside experts. It's really, really shocking and shameful that the school did nothing and the students are running helter skelter to organize this kind of a program and activity.
Everybody in the student committee, they came together to organize something. So many people, like I know so many people who had sought help from everywhere, like on the internet. They had been making phone calls, and then in association with like professors from colleges, a list of psychologists who were available in the city were made. And all of it was handed, like all the information, all the hard work had been done by the students, and still the principal needed to reject it.
I definitely want to ask you, Subhechha, that these two students, obviously they would have had certain other students, whether it was their classmates, who were their close friends. Uh, uh,
Hmm.
uh, you know, uh, uh, it's safe to say that those close friends were very, very profoundly impacted by the steps these two individuals took. Do you know at all in either case if these close knit people to these two individuals were able to get any kind of support or guidance themselves, because they would have experienced grief, maybe even some PTSD? I don't know.
They about the 11th grader, I know a friend who was his like closest buddy. They were a group of 4 or 5 boys who were very closely knit, and they were like really good friends. Those were the people who uh, whom the child sought help
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the just the day before. They had their exams just the day next. One of them couldn't really appear like properly, like none of them gave their best in the test, because obviously they were so bad. And then I remember being told that one of his friends, he she was lying in the sense, she rested her head during the exam, and she was like, for half an hour she was like blacked. All of that happened, and I don't think they sought any kind of outside help, but they were there for each other. uh, they were all grieving together.
Hmm.
So in a group that works, but
Yeah.
when isolate in isolation, I don't think anybody sought help
Yeah, I mean,
outside.
I think that's a wonderful point that's come up, and you've flagged it, because oftentimes, for lack of infrastructure or awareness or openness, for that matter, in a family, in a community, you may not get help. But as long as you're in a group, that can really, really become a strong support system. So at least, thank God for small mercies. Now, very quickly, because we can go on and on about cribbing and bad points. As someone who's now come out of that system, what are a few fairly basic or fundamental things that you would love to see being done at schools to prevent this kind of thing?
I think the first thing that should be done is destigmatize talks around mental health, because I've known people who think like going seeking help from a psychologist or a counselor makes you look like you've gone mad. It's baffling how people consider seeking help to be something, even if you're suffering from a disease, it shouldn't be a taboo. So this taboo thing should be broken, I think. That like when you start talking about mental health, that's how you open up about how you've been feeling. And it's very important for students to understand that their mental health affects every aspect of their daily life, academics, sports, everything that they do. So how I'm feeling today, that has an impact on whatever I do the whole day, right? So but then people just term it as, oh, I'm feeling lazy, I just don't want to get off the bed. What is making you not get out of the bed? What is making you feeling like lying the whole day on your bed? So thinking about how I actually feel, prioritizing themselves, has to be done even in school level itself. That's something I'd like to you know
Yeah, I think that's very, very important, that if you're feeling a certain exaggerated degree of lethargy, or it's requiring a lot of effort to do things that would otherwise be on autopilot, those things need to be investigated at the very least.
Definitely. And then even I think the media portrayal also plays a lot of, because I have read articles where they've only written like uh, child was a child was beaten by her school teacher, and then she committed suicide. That it's not that. There has to be layers to it. It is multi-layered. Nobody understand that mental health is like very deep rooted. It's very multi-layered. It's not just a consequence of one alone situation. One
Again,
has to.
that's very, very important and insightful. It's really, really not that binary or black and white or simplistic. We are very complex creatures. I would go so far as to say that in an overwhelming majority of the cases where we make this really rudimentary a conclusion and association that, oh, this happened and therefore this happened, is actually only a trigger point of something that is a much wider neurosis history with a lot of past, etc.
Also throwing around terms like depression and anxiety without PTSD, trauma, all of these in meme culture is like extremely degrading for people who really go through it, because they feel like they feel the need to closet their emotions, because it is taken in a sort of joke. And then taking terms like मैं तो सुशांत सिंह राजपूत से इंस्पिरेशन ले रहा हूँ, एग्जाम में पास वरना सुशांत सिंह राजपूत के पास, all of these kind of jokes and all of these kind of memes around suicide. And it's very degrading, and it reduces mental health to, like, already there's a lot of stigma, and all of these memes do a lot of damage, I think.
I completely agree. The casualization of very, very serious and debilitating conditions. One hears so often things like, अरे मैं तो शॉपिंग गई पर वो सेल में तो कुछ बचा ही नहीं था, मैं तो डिप्रेशन में आ गई. It's just shocking the way these terms are used. Somebody who is a little bit particular about how things are arranged in their room. Oh, ho, se to OCD hai. Just it's just absurd. You have no idea what people actually afflicted with these conditions endure and go through.
Exactly. There is also um, people just reduce it to like, हाँ ठीक है, depression हो गया. There was this teacher who used to joke about depression in like back in 10th grade, कि he used to have this kind of an accent, and he used to say कि child not studying and then going to father and telling father, I am failing in class, I am going into depression. And then it became a whole joke. Everybody used to joke कि, oh, I'm failing in class and like I'm going to this person. And like the words get distorted. That's how everything loses meaning, and that's how people, like, people who really experience depression, they firstly internalize it so much ki it's my fault, and then all of these jokes make like double down on them, and then make them feel like, oh, I should keep it within myself, because nobody else would understand. Even if I sought help, nobody would be
I
able to
think
help
I
me.
think it's especially shocking and irresponsible and morally repugnant that even if in the role of an educator, your private views don't align with certain things which are so important, that you don't make a joke of it in your class with your students. Your role and responsibility is to be doing the absolute opposite thing.
I have been guilty of laughing at those jokes, but now I'm much more aware and I've
Yeah.
unlearned the jokes. I'm really glad that I did, and I hope other people have done too, because all of us shared a class, and everybody shared, a common butt of jokes. But I hope everybody has come grown out of it. Fingers crossed.
I mean, I definitely want to conclude our interaction on a note of hope and positivity, because, again, just by virtue of somebody who continues to teach very, very passionately, I'm regularly meeting newer and newer parents, and I see a clear evolution and shift in mindset, whether it is these younger couples being more open to talking about mental health, to diagnosing conditions that their young children may have, which is a very, very different situation from until recently parents being in denial, nahi nahi kuch nahi hai, it's a passing phase, wo to chanchal hai, you would hear these kinds of things, to now parents really wanting to go to the correct resources, investigate, identify, get the child the help, etc. So things are definitely moving. I suppose, obviously, being as vast a country as we are, I think we will all take different sort of, I suppose, evolution cycles and times to get to that point. But I think as a collective, the movement is in the right direction.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
silver lining to the end.
No, I really think so. And, the fact that you are, again, courageous enough to say that you were yourself sort of partaking of the humor of these things, and then you yourself experienced growth and evolution and came to a certain very different understanding, is the biggest proof of that evolution.
Yeah. Uh, Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think this is a very, very important dialogue. I really don't know how many people will watch it, but I hope they do. And the few that they do, please, please think about these things, and let's all do our little bits to really alleviate the situation. Thank you very much, and all the best with all of your endeavors. And I really hope that the case never closes.
Thank you.